Dr. Ebrahim Harvey says over-bureaucratization and bureaucratization, I beg your pardon, and over-centralization of the executive within the presidency will not resolve the problems facing the state. His views are a response to President Cyril Ramaphosa's expansion of ministries that have been moved to the presidency when he announced new changes to the executive this week. Harvey submits that problems facing South Africa are not just a failure to implement adopted policies, but the real problem is the adopted policies. He says the ANC has failed to listen to advice, that its policies are neoliberal and have dismally failed the poor. Dr. Ebrahim Harvey, former Cosatu trade unionist, political writer, commentator and author, and his books include The Great Pretenders, Race and Class Under ANC Rule. Dr. Harvey, great to have you. Thanks again for joining us here on the program.
Good morning, Leanne, and good morning to the viewers.
So I suppose the main question we need to ask is it over-centralization of power, or is the president trying to exercise control and keep an eagle's eye on performance?
No, he's trying to secure both objectives simultaneously. And it's a delicate balance that he's trying to strike. You see, there's no doubt that, but that is what I called in a Power FM interview yesterday, at the level of formal logic. It would appear that if you bring problematic spots in ministries, in the government, into the office, you'll have closer scrutiny and control over the existence of those portfolios, and so that they're more effective and efficient. But what's been happening is that there's a trend of Ramaphosa to be doing this for quite a long time. And I think it's because they mistakenly, himself and the cabinet, thinks that the main problems resides with a restructuring, and playing around with the structure of cabinet and with his presidency. Whereas, in fact, in the final analysis, and if that doesn't tell you anything, then really we're closing our eyes. Right now, Leanne, we have the worst multifaceted crises converging simultaneously at this particular conjuncture. Everything is falling apart. And I'll tell you from my own studies, which has been over 2 decades, it resides with policies. It's the neoliberal policy choices. Why do you think, Leanne, that black townships have been burning from June 2004? I study this area. Unstoppable, with the protest capital of the world. Also, very interestingly, under ANC rule, the most unequal society in the world. Surely that has to tell you, and you say you have got probably amongst the most progressive constitutions in the world, in the Bill of Rights, and people are getting the worst poverty, black poverty, unemployment, and inequalities raging, exist today far more than they ever did during the darkest days of apartheid. And I knew the townships. I was in the townships from 1972 when I joined SASM. So this is sadly the case, and the ANC never wants to confront and recognize, even at their policy conferences when they have a chance to review how effective their policies have been. They have never gone to what I call the triple C. The commercialization, corporatization, and commodification of basic services. That is what is happening in the townships, Leanne. And it's continuing because the ANC is unable to intellectually even sit down, take note, look at this, and why we have this unstoppable avalanche of township protests from 2004. Every time they have a policy conference, I eagerly look at what they focus on, and I'm telling you, those issues, burning as they are, they don't feature at all. So that's why I'm saying you can tinker around with structure and do this and that, but if you fail to address the policy deficiencies, which is so glaring, you can talk to the social movements, talk to many leading academics at all the institutions, they will tell you, they will agree that it's with policies that the ANC has failed dismally, and they're refusing and failing to address policies. Yeah. You have a chance, I think, well, it's too late, I think, now to talk about a shift of policies with next year's election, just over a year from now. But that is, Leanne, I'm absolutely convinced where the problems lie.
And, this, and one can see it. It doesn't take we don't walk around with blinkers on. It's something that we are seeing right in front of our eyes, and it doesn't matter where you look, in what corner you look, it is there, and it's very, very obvious. But the reality is that there's always been this talk about performance contracts and a promise to monitor the performance of the executive. How is the process of monitoring and evaluation going? And how has the performance of the executive being measured in South Africa? Because if we have to measure it as South Africans, I would say the performance is dismal, but perhaps maybe I don't know how these things work. Maybe you can educate me.
No, it's absolutely dismal. I said on radio yesterday morning I was interviewed, I think it's Power FM or something. You know, Leanne, things are so bad. People are so, sorry to use the word, alienated from the ANC that I can tell you now and guarantee you that they're going to drop below 50% and probably 40 to 45%, if not even below 40. But to address your question, you know what is ironical? If they have to be doing proper monitoring and evaluation of how effective the ministries are, I can tell you many ministers would not have been in the cabinet, and some would not have survived or been shifted around, elsewhere. This is what they do. It's like shifting chairs on a sinking Titanic. That is what the cabinet reshuffle to. But Leanne, you must see what they're talking now about to show you the immense confusion. They want to reinstate a ministry of performance evaluation and monitoring. But as anybody asked, as the ANC asked, 2013, Trevor Manuel was head of the ministry. It's a decade from now. What has happened, Leanne, to the National Development Plan? Where is an appraisal of the results of that plan? A decade. This is the ANC, And I won't be surprised that it might have been the influence of Manuel upon Ramaphosa, etc., to reinstate this ministry. But where are the results? Well, it's dismal. Cosatu, the SABC rejected the National Development Plan when it was imposed, really, or introduced. That's a decade ago, Leanne. Yeah. Nothing happened at all. But if they really want to perform an effective and efficient monitoring and evaluation, they must start in the cabinet. Now, this is aside from the fact that they've got ministers who've been seriously fingered in the Zondo Commission of Inquiry. I mean, Nomvula Mokonyane, there are red flags all over. If you look at the Zondo Commission of Inquiry and other people, Very Montage, Kosasa, the ANC doesn't care much, and it's a slap in the face, really, even for its supporters. Because people can see its membership and supporters, they can see what is going on, Leanne. And I think really that's why I say next year, I think you're going to see the ANC not just lose power for the first time in a national election, so you're going to have a national coalition government. But I'm telling you, it is so bad, the feeling and revulsion towards the ANC, social media all over. I won't be surprised, Leanne, that they go below 40% even next year.
I mean, you talk about this. I mean, one of the pictures that really sort of was trending a lot was when Minister Zizi Kodwa was sworn in by Justice Raymond Zondo, and he was the one person as Deputy Minister that he actually recommended Zondo to say, he's got too much close ties with a former businessman of EOH, and he should be relieved of his position. And there he is, not only, he's not held accountable, he's there up in a ministerial position now, and Justice Zondo had to swear him in. It's almost like you can't make this stuff up, you really can't. But I want to ask you on neoliberal policies. You did say it earlier, you advised that South Africa's challenge is not only failure to implement the policies, but it's the actual policies themselves. If you can give me one example, just to help us understand this, what policies are you referring to?
Okay, yes, it's very easy. It's easy to answer your question because it's up my alley, it's my area of study. Leanne, how did prepaid water and electricity meters not just get installed, but imposed? You know what they did in Piri in Soweto? It's the township where I have a case study of 200 households. They shoved prepaid water and electricity meters down the throats of people. You know what they were doing? They had to get the army in, Leanne, to complete the installation of prepaid water meters in Piri. People were ripping the prepaid water meters out of the ground, Leanne. You see, I'm giving you one. So how does prepaid water meters arise? It arises because what they did, the apartheid times, they had very effective municipal government. The departments in Joburg City, for example, the only problem is that they served white people and they neglected. But world-class standards, in fact, the white working class enjoyed amongst the best municipal standards in the world. What the ANC did, upon advice and insistence from the World Bank officials, we've studied this, you must speak to Professor Patrick Bond and other people. They came with this thing about commercializing and corporatizing basic services. So the water sanitation department shut down. They formed Joburg Water, they formed City Power, they formed Pick It Up, etc. Corporatized utilities. And go and do some research and you'll see where a lot of corruption has occurred is in those very corporatized utilities. So there, I'm just giving you one glaring policy example. There are many more, Leanne. How could you demand that black people, having inherited a highly impoverished past under apartheid, begin to pay for services? Why do you think Eskom has got such massive debt in Soweto and elsewhere in the country? They can't recover the money because people have been too poor. It's worse now. People are struggling even to put food on the table. It's the worst. Malnutrition, hunger, children are going to bed hungry, Leanne. It's the worst time ever.
Yeah.
But there you have a glaring example. I can give you many more about problems. In Mbeki, I've had a debate and discussion with the Malema, Motlanthe, all of them. They keep on telling me when I say you are mistaken and this is deliberate deception, that the problem is that with implementation, that the ANC has got the proper policies, but the only problem is the implementation. It is the biggest lie. And the proof of the pudding is in the eating. Go and see what's happening from June 2004 in the black townships. That is the reason why, because of what's happening in the black townships, that we've become the produce capital of the world, Leanne.
Very quickly, so, we've got 1 minute, and I just want to get your comment on this. I mean, many commentators, many writers have said that the former revolution and struggle activists, who are now the leaders of our country, have gotten too used to power, and that the opulence that comes with proximity to resources, how can the status quo be corrected? And how can South Africa press the reset button to bring about effective change to the life of the general public? Because there is so much hopelessness out there, which has really bred pessimism, and it looks like things are not going to get any better.
No, Leanne, let me tell you, any sense of perspective of optimism must be rooted in realities. Otherwise, you're talking pie in the sky thing. To be honest with you, I know a lot of leading people in the ANC. I've lost hope. I'm saying it in public with the ANC. You know what? We lack seriously feasible alternatives to the ANC. There's the DA, and in fact, increasing the DA is sounding like a social democratic party, which shows you to what extent the ANC has moved to the neoliberal right. That the DA, go and look at the issues they pick up. Cost of living, they're fighting all the issues that you would have expected the ANC to be leading on and setting the example. Leanne, you know what? Really, I said it last week on TV. If it was possible, and we could vote in a new party in this country, honestly, I would certainly have preferred that option. I have little hope that the ANC will ever see the light of day, especially around these neoliberal policies. And if you think I'm the only one, there's an abundance of literature. There's articles, it's in the newspaper, social media. The biggest problems of the ANC, it was the adoption of neoliberal policies virtually from 1994. 2 months after 1994 election, they adopted the Water Services Act. Go and see what happened there. Cost recovery, etc., was paramount in that act 2 months, Leanne, after the elections, Yeah. And so the work officials have played a big role. I'm telling you now, they took officials of the ANC in Joburg, for example, they took them to all around the world, London, Chicago, New York, etc. And after that, the Municipal Systems Act was implemented in 2000, which for the first time, it never even happened under apartheid. They commercialized, corporatized, and modified basic services. And I insist That is why the townships have been burning, Leanne.
All right, we've got to leave it there. We're running over. Dr. Ebrahim Harvey, thank you. Former Cosatu trade unionist, political writer, commentator and author, saying that South Africa and the power of over-centralization of the executive within the presidency is a bit of a wrong move by the president.